Karen thought she could get away with stealing her neighbor's precious garden statues. But what she didn't know is that her whole heist was captured by a network of drones. And now the entire neighborhood is watching her get exactly what's coming to her. Rage boiled through Jenna's veins as she stared at the empty spaces where her beloved garden statues used to stand. Those cherished figurines, a family heirloom passed down for generations, were the centerpiece of her meticulously landscaped backyard oasis. And now they were gone, stolen in the dead of night by her vindictive neighbor Karen. Jenna's hands trembled as she stormed over to Karen's house, her long-suppressed temper finally erupting. "Karen, I know you took them. Give me back my statues, you thieving witch." Karen peeked through the curtains, a sly grin spreading across her face. "I have no idea what you're talking about, Jenna. Maybe you simply misplaced them." "Don't play dumb with me," Jenna shouted, pounding on the door. "I saw you sneaking around my yard last night. Give them back, or I'm calling the police." But Karen just stood there, delighting in Jenna's distress. "Prove it," she taunted. "You have no evidence." Jenna's mind raced, desperately searching for a solution. Then, a glimmer of hope. Her neighbor Jeff's drone. He was always flying that thing around, capturing aerial footage of the neighborhood. Maybe he had unknowingly recorded something incriminating. Rushing over to Jeff's house, Jenna explained the situation, pleading for him to check his drone footage. At first, Jeff was skeptical, but the genuine anguish in Jenna's eyes convinced him to at least take a look. They huddled around Jeff's laptop, hearts pounding as he scrolled through the video files. And then, there it was, clear as day, the unmistakable image of Karen creeping through Jenna's yard, hefting the statues into her arms. "I can't believe it," Jeff murmured, shaking his head in disbelief. "That conniving snake." Jenna felt a rush of vindication, but also a deep, primal sense of violation. "Can you download that footage? I need to show it to the police." "Absolutely," Jeff said, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "This is going to be epic." As the video file was saved to a USB drive, Jenna couldn't help but wonder, what other secrets might Karen's attic be hiding? And how far would she go to cover up her crime? Jenna's heart raced as she rushed to the police station, Jeff's incriminating drone footage clutched tightly in her hand. Finally, after months of silent fuming, she had the proof she needed to confront Karen and get her precious garden statues back. The officer at the front desk listened intently as Jenna recounted the entire saga, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and relief. "This is some serious business," the officer remarked, stroking his chin thoughtfully. "Breaking and entering, theft of personal property, that's a pretty hefty list of charges." Jenna nodded emphatically. "I've got it all on video." Karen was caught red-handed. The officer gestured for Jenna to follow him, leading her to a small interview room. "Let's take a closer look at that footage, then. We'll need to review it thoroughly before we can bring Karen in for questioning." As they huddled around the laptop, Jenna watched with bated breath, her fingers crossed. The grainy drone footage clearly showed Karen sneaking through the shadows, her arms full of the garden statues. Jenna couldn't help but feel a surge of vindictive glee. Finally, the tables had turned on her conniving neighbor. "Excellent," the officer said, nodding approvingly. "This is exactly the kind of evidence we need. I'll dispatch a unit to Karen's house immediately." Jenna could hardly contain her excitement. "Thank you, officer. I can't wait to see the look on her face when you arrest her." But as the officer began making the necessary calls, a sudden realization dawned on Jenna. What if Karen tried to hide or destroy any other incriminating evidence before the police arrived? Her attic was a treasure trove of potentially stolen goods. Who knew what other secrets it might hold? "Officer, wait!" Jenna exclaimed, her mind racing. "Can we go to Karen's house right away? I'm worried she might try to cover up her crime before you get there." The officer paused, considering Jenna's request. "That's a good point. All right, let's move. We don't want to give her any time to get rid of the evidence." With that, the officer and Jenna rushed out of the station, heading straight for Karen's doorstep. Jenna's heart pounded with a mixture of apprehension and anticipation. This was it, her chance to finally expose Karen's lies and get justice for her stolen heirlooms. Jenna's palms were sweaty as she and the police officer approached Karen's front door. After years of enduring her neighbor's spiteful behavior, she was finally on the verge of getting the justice she deserved. The officer rapped firmly on the door. "This is the police. Open up, Karen. We have some questions for you." There was a long pause, then the sound of tentative footsteps. The door slowly creaked open, revealing a startled-looking Karen. "What's going on?" she asked, feigning innocence. "Is everything all right?" "We have reason to believe you're in possession of stolen property," the officer stated, his tone stern. "We'd like to conduct a search of your home." Karen's eyes widened in panic, but she quickly recovered her composure. "Stolen property? I have no idea what you're talking about." Jenna couldn't hold back any longer. "Don't play dumb, Karen. I know you took my garden statues. We have you on video." Karen's face contorted with rage as she glared at Jenna. "You lying little—" "Ma'am, please step aside," the officer interrupted, pushing past her into the house. "We're going to take a look around." As the officer began searching the premises, Jenna couldn't help but feel a twinge of anticipation. What other secrets might Karen's attic hold? She trailed closely behind the officer, her heart pounding with each step. Suddenly, the sound of a crash echoed from upstairs, followed by the officer's booming voice. "Karen, get down here. Now." Jenna raced up the stairs, her breath catching in her throat. The attic door stood ajar, and as she peered inside, she couldn't believe her eyes. Piles of stolen goods were strewn everywhere. Antique vases, valuable paintings, and a veritable treasure trove of other household items, all of which looked suspiciously familiar. And there, in the center of the chaos, stood the officer, holding a pair of Jenna's precious garden statues. "Karen, you're under arrest," the officer declared, his face etched with disgust. "We've got you dead to rights. Try to run, and it'll only make things worse." As Karen was handcuffed and led away, Jenna felt a profound sense of relief and vindication. Her long-simmering feud with her neighbor had finally come to a head, and the outcome was sweeter than she could have imagined. But as she gazed around the ransacked attic, a new wave of emotions washed over her. Just how deep did Karen's thievery run? And what other secrets might she have been hiding all this time? As Karen was led away in handcuffs, Jenna could hardly believe the scale of her neighbor's criminal enterprise. The attic, once a nondescript storage space, had been transformed into a veritable den of thieves, a trove of stolen goods, each item a testament to Karen's brazen disregard for the law. Jenna's mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. How long had this been going on? Had Karen been pilfering from the entire neighborhood, taking whatever caught her eye and stashing it away in the shadows of her attic? The officer, his face etched with a mixture of disgust and professionalism, began meticulously cataloging the evidence. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to take a look around and see if you can identify any of these items as your own." Jenna nodded, her heart pounding as she stepped into the cluttered space. Trinkets, furniture, and other household goods were piled high, each one a potential clue to unraveling the web of Karen's misdeeds. As she carefully surveyed the scene, a familiar glint caught her eye. Pushing aside a stack of antique books, she gasped in recognition. There, nestled amongst the stolen goods, were the cherished garden statues, the very ones she had reported missing just days earlier. "Officer, these are mine," she exclaimed, her voice trembling with a mix of relief and righteous fury. "Karen stole them from my backyard." The officer nodded, his expression grim. "I figured as much. We'll make sure to return them to you, along with any other items we can positively identify as yours." Jenna's gaze swept across the room, taking in the sheer volume of pilfered possessions. How long has she been doing this? And how many of our neighbors has she been stealing from? The officer let out a heavy sigh. That's what we're going to have to find out. This is going to take some time, but we'll get to the bottom of it. As the investigation continued, Jenna felt a wave of mixed emotions. On one hand, she was relieved to have her treasured statues back and to see Karen finally face the consequences of her actions. But on the other, she couldn't help but feel a deep sense of violation, knowing that her neighbor had been preying on the entire community all this time. And as the list of stolen items continued to grow, Jenna couldn't help but wonder just how far-reaching were the ripples of Karen's misdeeds, and what other secrets might be lurking in the shadows of that accursed attic. As the police combed through the contents of Karen's attic, Jenna's mind raced with a million questions. How long had her neighbor been secretly pilfering from the community? And just how many of her other unsuspecting neighbors had fallen victim to Karen's sticky-fingered antics? The officer, his brow furrowed with concentration, continued cataloging the growing mountain of stolen goods. We're going to need to reach out to the entire neighborhood, see if anyone else can identify any of these items as theirs. Jenna nodded, her stomach churning with a mixture of anger and disbelief. I can't believe Karen has been getting away with this for so long. How did no one notice? Well, based on the sheer volume of stuff up here, it seems she's been at it for quite some time, the officer replied, shaking his head grimly. And if she was careful about it, only taking a little here and there, it's possible no one ever connected the dots. Jenna let out a frustrated sigh. That conniving witch. She must have been laughing at all of us the whole time. The officer shot her a sympathetic glance. Don't worry, ma'am. We're going to get to the bottom of this. And I can assure you, Karen is going to pay for her crimes. As the investigation continued, more and more of Jenna's neighbors began arriving at Karen's house, their faces a mix of shock and outrage as they identified their stolen possessions among the piles of loot. Precious family heirlooms, prized antiques, even mundane household items. It seemed no one in the community had been spared from Karen's five-finger discounts. Jenna watched it all unfold with a growing sense of vindication, but also a deep unease. The sheer scale of Karen's thievery was truly staggering, and she couldn't help but wonder what other secrets might be lurking in the shadows of that accursed attic. As the officers continued their methodical search, Jenna couldn't help but notice a small, innocuous-looking box tucked away in the corner. Curiosity getting the better of her, she carefully opened it, her breath catching in her throat at the sight of its contents. Rows of what appeared to be photographs, dozens of them, each one capturing a different angle of her backyard, her home, even her own front door. Jenna's heart raced as she flipped through the images, her hands trembling with a newfound sense of violation. "Officer," she called out, her voice laced with alarm. "I think you need to see this." The officer hurried over, his brow furrowed with concern. "What is it, ma'am?" Jenna's hands shook as she held out the box of photographs. These are all pictures of my house, of my backyard. What the hell is going on?" The officer's eyes widened as he examined the disturbing cache of images. "This is highly concerning. It appears your neighbor has been conducting some kind of surveillance on your property." Jenna felt a chill run down her spine. "Surveillance? You mean? She's been spying on me." The officer nodded grimly. "That's exactly what it looks like. These photos seem to document your daily routines, your comings and goings. This is a serious invasion of privacy." Jenna's mind raced, trying to make sense of this latest revelation. But why? What could she possibly gain from all this? The officer's expression hardened. "That's what we're going to have to find out. This could be tied to her criminal activity in more ways than we initially realized." Jenna's stomach twisted with a sickening realization. "You don't think she was planning to break in or something, do you?" The officer's brow furrowed. "It's certainly a possibility. We'll need to examine these photos more closely, see if we can discern any patterns or possible motives." As the officer began cataloging the disturbing cache of photographs, Jenna felt a wave of dread wash over her. What other secrets was Karen hiding? And how much further was she willing to go to cover up her crimes? Jenna's mind raced, thinking back to all the times she'd caught Karen lurking around her property, that sly, calculating look on her face. Had she been planning this all along? Carefully studying Jenna's routines, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The very thought sent a shiver down Jenna's spine. She couldn't shake the feeling that Karen's thievery was just the tip of the iceberg, that there was something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface. As the investigation continued, Jenna knew she couldn't rest easy. Not until every last one of Karen's ill-gotten gains was returned, and the full extent of her neighbor's misdeeds was exposed for all to see. But with each new revelation, Jenna couldn't help but wonder, just how deep did the rabbit hole go? And what other horrors might be unearthed before the truth was finally laid bare? As the police continued their meticulous search of Karen's attic, Jenna found herself consumed by a growing sense of unease. The discovery of the trove of photographs, each one documenting her private life in unsettling detail, had shaken her to the core. What other sinister secrets might be lurking in the shadows of that accursed space? The officer, his brow furrowed with concentration, carefully catalogued each new piece of evidence. "Ma'am, I'm afraid this goes far beyond a simple case of theft. The level of surveillance and premeditation here is deeply concerning." Jenna nodded, her hands clenched into tight fists. "I knew Karen was twisted, but I never imagined she'd stoop this low. What else could she possibly be hiding up there?" The officer let out a heavy sigh. "That's what we're going to have to find out. But I can assure you, we're going to get to the bottom of this, no matter how deep the rabbit hole goes." As the investigation continued, more and more disturbing discoveries came to light. Forged documents, stolen identities, even a cache of illegal firearms. It seemed Karen's criminal enterprise knew no bounds. Jenna watched in horror as the true scale of her neighbor's misdeeds unfolded before her eyes. How could someone she had known for years, someone she had once considered a part of the community, be capable of such a staggering betrayal? This is unbelievable," Jenna murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "Karen, she's a monster." The officer nodded solemnly. "I'm afraid so, ma'am. And the worst part is, we may never know the full extent of her crimes. She's been operating under the radar for God knows how long." Jenna's heart sank as she contemplated the implications. How many other innocent lives had Karen ruined? How much damage had she inflicted on the community she had once professed to be a part of? As the investigation dragged on, Jenna found herself consumed by a burning desire for justice. She wanted to see Karen pay for every single one of her misdeeds, to watch as the weight of her actions finally caught up with her. But deep down, Jenna couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that there was something even more sinister lurking in the shadows. What other horrors might still be uncovered as the police continued to delve into the depths of Karen's twisted web of deceit? As the investigation into Karen's sordid activities dragged on, Jenna found herself consumed by a whirlwind of emotions: anger, disbelief, and an overwhelming sense of violation. The woman she had once considered a neighbor, even a friend, had been secretly orchestrating a web of deceit and criminal behavior that stretched far beyond the boundaries of their quiet community. The police had unearthed a veritable treasure trove of stolen goods in Karen's attic, each item a testament to her brazen disregard for the law. Precious family heirlooms, priceless antiques, even mundane household items. It seemed no one in the neighborhood had been spared from her sticky-fingered antics. But the most disturbing discovery had been the cache of photographs, each one capturing Jenna's private life in excruciating detail. The realization that Karen had been secretly monitoring her every move sent a chill down Jenna's spine, fueling a deep sense of violation that she couldn't quite shake. This goes far beyond simple theft, the lead investigator had told her, his face etched with a mixture of disgust and professional detachment. We're talking about premeditated, predatory behavior on a scale I haven't seen in my entire career." Jenna nodded, her hands trembling with a mix of anger and apprehension. What else could she be hiding? What other horrors might be lurking in that attic? The investigator let out a heavy sigh. "I'm afraid we may never know the full extent of Karen's crimes. She's been operating under the radar for years, carefully cultivating an image of normalcy while systematically preying on the community." Jenna felt a lump forming in her throat. Then how can we be sure she's really going to pay for what she's done? The investigator's expression darkened. "Oh, she'll pay, all right. We're building an airtight case against her. Theft, breaking and entering, identity theft, the whole 9 yards. She's looking at a very lengthy prison sentence." Jenna couldn't help but feel a twinge of satisfaction at the thought of Karen finally facing the consequences of her actions. But as the investigator continued to lay out the details of the case, a nagging sense of unease began to creep into the back of her mind. "What if there's more to this than we even know?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if Karen's been planning something even worse all along?" The investigator's brow furrowed, his eyes conveying a silent acknowledgement of Jenna's concerns. "We're leaving no stone unturned, ma'am. Whatever Karen's been up to, we're going to get to the bottom of it." As Jenna watched the police continue their methodical search of the attic, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The true depth of Karen's depravity had yet to be fully unearthed, and Jenna couldn't help but wonder what other nightmares might still be lurking in the shadows.